When people ask me, so how could this possibly have occurred, this level of an injustice, it's because nobody on the other side has any competence, has any brains, has any balls, and they're all a bunch of complete
idiots, imbeciles,
and cowards. Let's underline cowards, especially old white men who think they've been successful in life. They totally lose their balls. I've seen this constantly. The loss of and it's ironic enough because Jerry Sandusky himself has no testicular matter, which should be the number one fact that no one actually knows in this case, which makes it impossible for him to have done most of what he was accused of, and impossible that 36 guys could get paid over $100 million, and no one ever mentioned that. But that's a fact from his medical records way before the accusations ever even occurred publicly. So anyway, the bottom line of this is, I've had it psychologically. I've had it from a practical standpoint. I will continue to still do some things on this case because there's a lot of stuff that I still have that I need to release just to tie up loose ends. I'm still trying to figure out when the right time and the best way to do that is. So I do want everything. I still have an interest in putting everything on the record out there, even though it's pointless. It may even harm me in some ways, but I just don't care. So while it's not the last that I'm going to talk about this for sure, and I'm sure things will happen in the news that will force me to talk about it. And again, I'm going to still release some of the evidence that I have. I'm not going to, barring some magic from this podcast company, I'm not going to do anything actively to pursue this case. I'll release stuff I have. I'll comment on things that happen in the news, but I'm done at trying to help these people. They cannot help themselves, and 7 years is enough of that. So it's sad, it's pathetic, it's tragic, but that's where we are, and that's why Al Lindsay is not going to be the guy to get Jerry Sandusky out of prison. Now, as far as the update on Leaving Neverland, I have said that dates are so incredibly important to these kind of cases. Dates and years are kryptonite to false stories of sexual abuse. And this is consistent. I've seen this in so many different stories. It's all over the Sandusky case. It's all over the Brett Kavanaugh case. Christine Ford has no idea where or when this accusation occurred. And to me, that ought to be just the basics. I mean, especially for a very old story. You got to at least tell me where and when something happened. And that's especially the case in a situation like Leaving Neverland, where you're dealing with Michael Jackson, one of the most famous men in the world, and therefore, he's traveling all over the place. Where he is almost recorded on a daily basis. There's some sort of record of it almost every single day of his life. And so if you say something happened at a particular time or particular day, there's a good chance he's going to be able to prove he wasn't there. And they never let Jerry Sandusky have that opportunity because there was almost no dates in this particular case. And as I said, the only key date was totally wrong, catastrophically wrong, the Mike McQueary episode. So with that in mind, it's always fascinating to me how these suspect cases never give you a specific time and date and place. And with regard to dates, there was an interview that Dan Reed, the director of this phony film that won the Emmy for Outstanding Documentary. Let's be clear, though, about how just absurd it is that HBO won the Emmy and Dan Reed won the Emmy here.
Wow, this has been quite a journey with this documentary. It began with an obscure reference in a web page to two young men who I'd never heard of before, and it's it's been quite a journey. As I say, we didn't expect quite the backlash we had. I want to first of all thank HBO, and in particular Nancy Abraham here, for its unwavering support of this very, very difficult production. And of course, none of this would have been possible without the incredible courage and determination of James Safechuck and Wade Robson and their families, and I really want to salute that. I feel so honored to be here, and I feel so thrilled that this film has gained the acknowledgement it has with this Emmy, because I think this is one of the first times we've been able to shine a light on how child sexual abuse, which is a crime that plagues so many millions of people worldwide, how the pattern of how it actually happens, how it unfolds. It's not an easy thing to understand, but I think in this incredible 4-hour journey that Wade and James made possible by telling their story with unflinching honesty, I think it allowed a very wide public worldwide to get an insight into how child sexual abuse actually happens and the mysteries of why, for instance, it often remains undisclosed for so many decades. So I thank them from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. The first thing I want to do is thank James Safechuck here and Wade Robson and their incredibly courageous families as well, their mums, for taking the step of agreeing to tell their stories for this documentary. I think they're the people that I want to thank first of all. I want to thank my amazing teammates, collaborators, and I want to thank Amos Pictures, which is our little company in London. I want to thank HBO for making this all possible. Their unwavering support has allowed this extraordinary production to happen. It's been very high risk, it's been very dramatic, the reception has been extraordinary, and the impact has been unprecedented. And I just want to thank HBO for being there. Thank you very much.
I mean, it's not just that the story is false and that the two stars, James Safechuck and Wade Robson, are lying sacks of crap or motherfuckers, as Dave Chappelle said. It's not just that. It's the first article I ever wrote about Leaving Neverland was Michael Jackson could be guilty as hell and Leaving Neverland would still be incredibly unfair. You have a one-sided hit job for 4 hours about a dead man. How does that even qualify to be considered for a documentary award, and yet to win it? Well, of course, they won it because HBO bought it. That's what it is. I mean, HBO sponsors the Emmys, and, this was a consolation prize. Hey, good job. This is good job trying to promote the Me Too thing. And I didn't even realize that James Safechuck actually went up on stage to help Dan Reed accept the award. I mean, like he's an actor. Like he's an actor in a film. That's exactly what would happen. If this was a fictional film and the director won, they would bring up one of the stars on stage, and that's what James Safechuck did last weekend. He came up on stage. Not just attended, he went up on stage and was congratulated by Dan Reed in his acceptance speech. By the way, Wade Robson was not there. Wonder why Wade Robson wasn't there. And Wade Robson has been posting some weird stuff on his social media pages. So it's possible that Wade Robson may be going through a nervous breakdown, but that might be a little premature. But anyway, so I want to get that out there right off the bat. But as far as this date thing, there was an interview with Dan Reed that I thought was post having won the Emmys when I first posted about this on Twitter. And then I looked into it and I was wrong. This is actually an interview that came out when the movie came out. But it's still important from this perspective of when things occurred and the timeline. Let me read to you Dan Reed. This is an interview, some fairly minor media outlet that covers entertainment and film. And Dan Reed says of his film and of the Michael Jackson fans who have done an amazing job deconstructing the allegations in this film, he says, quote, "So I don't know where these people spend their lives, but they have an astonishing ability to ignore reality and common sense." Boy, that's the pot calling the kettle black. "They say that Wade is an admitted liar. That doesn't make any sense either, because when was he lying? They have to decide he was lying in court in 2005 at Jackson's trial, or is he lying now? Presumably they mean he's lying now. He's the one admitting to lying in court. Presumably what the Jackson fans are saying is that he told the truth in court, and that's why he's not a perjurer, right? Because what Wade said in court is that Michael never touched him. If that isn't true, then he's not a perjurer and not an admitted liar. He's the one who said that he lied. They should be saying that he's a man who told the truth in court." Now, this is absurd.
It's just flat out ridiculous.
First of all, there's not just his 2005 court appearance. Dan Reed seems to be forgetting that Wade Robson is suing. And when he is sued the Jackson estate, he was put under oath in a deposition, videotapes of which have just most recently been released. And so Dan Reed wants to pretend that that anything that is contradictory to his narrative doesn't exist. And so he's a perjurer either way. There is no way that he's not a perjurer, because he either lied in the criminal trial in 2005 or he lied in his deposition numerous times during this court case. It's clear, logically, why you should trust his criminal court testimony, because he had no incentive in 2005, or very little incentive in 2005, to lie in a criminal trial, especially if he had really been abused. And he has a massive incentive in the civil case against the estate, because he's suing for millions and millions and millions of dollars. So, not to mention, there's no evidence supporting what he's lying about in the deposition. But this idea that somehow Dan Reed can't understand, like he seems to be legitimately confused as to whether the Jackson people are saying, the Jackson fans and supporters are saying that Robson is a liar or a perjurer because of 2005 when they're claiming he told the truth. I mean, this is not a difficult concept unless you're a moron. I mean, really, you really have to be
Idiots! Imbeciles!
to not understand what the point here is. The point here is that if you are to believe Wade Robson's current story, then he must be a horrendous perjurer at a criminal trial, denying the accuser in that case a fair trial. You have to believe that. And when you perjure yourself, and this is maybe from a big picture perspective, forget about Michael Jackson, this might be the most important part of the Wade Robson story from its cultural significance. Are we now to suggest that testimony under oath as an adult can just be completely disregarded years later after someone is dead when you have a massive financial incentive? That's absurd. I mean, it's beyond.
It's just flat out ridiculous.
It's almost indescribable, but it's almost as bizarre as that Dan Reed can't seem to understand this. So then he continues. He says, the astonishing thing is also when you go online on Twitter and stuff, which I try not to do too much. There's bullshit. By the way, he's blocked me on Twitter now. This guy who wants the truth out has blocked me. I've criticized him harshly, but I've never, made any kind of threat against him or used bad language with him. He just blocks me because he's tired of having to look at what I write. But of course, he doesn't spend much time there. Right, but he's blocked other people as well. But you shouldn't be blocking me. That's for damn sure. Unless, of course, you've got something to hide. So he continues, there's people who spend a great deal of time and care into creating videos exposing the lies of Leaving Neverland, and pretty much everything they are saying have been contradicted by the documentary itself. Now, this is a fascinating statement. He says, all you need to do is watch the documentary. It's like Dan Reed thinks that his film is the only piece of evidence that there is, even if you want to call it evidence. It's almost like he is the director of a fictional film who is defending the continuity of his work. In other words, you create a completely made up story, but there's some sort of hole in the plot that people are saying, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense because of X, Y, or Z. And the film director says, no. Look at my film. There's an explanation for that. That makes sense in a fictional world where you are the only source of information because it's from your imagination. But that's not what a documentary is. A documentary has to deal with everything that's in the public domain. And Dan Reed wants to pretend that anything that's in the public domain that doesn't jive with his documentary doesn't exist. So he says, there's this thing around of, how come Stephanie Safechuck, this is Stephanie Safechuck, the mom of James Safechuck, how come Stephanie knew about the abuse? How come she was dancing when Michael Jackson died and when James told her about the abuse in 2013? All right, that's the dates problem. 2009, Michael Jackson dies. There's this horrible scene in the film where Stephanie Sapechuk has horrendous acting, claiming that she danced when she apparently woke up from a nap in the middle of the afternoon in Los Angeles when Michael Jackson was reported to be dead on her television, and she started dancing. I mean, if you watch it, you realize this is ridiculous. It's absurd. She's acting, and it's horrendous acting. But that was 2009. Yet, it's obvious that James told her about the abuse in 2013 if you see the entire factual record of this case. Well, Dan Reed says, well, that's not the case. James told his mother about the abuse in 2005, and that's clear in the film. He told her Michael abused me. That's a quote. He says, Michael abused me in 2005. If you watch the film with both eyes and ears open, that's incredibly obvious and plain. That's the bizarre thing. They don't even seem to watch the film. That's not true. In 2005, the story goes that James Sapechuk told his mom, Michael is a bad man. And this was supposedly in some sort of way explaining why he wasn't going to testify at Michael Jackson's 2005 trial. Dan Reed, since he considers himself to be the be-all, end-all source on all this, which is absurd since he knows very little about the actual case, apparently, has at different times said it was 2009 when he told her about the abuse, which doesn't make any damn sense. Because you would only do that after he's dead, right? I get the idea. Hey, Mom, by the way, Michael Jackson's dead now. I can tell you he abused me all those years. Now, what happened, because she's instantly dancing, supposedly, not really, when she finds out he's dead. And there's no story of, oh, my God, James, Michael Jackson's dead. And somehow James says, oh, thank God I can finally tell you he abused me all those years. So the 2009 thing is absurd and ridiculous and not possible based upon his own film. The 2005 thing is not what the film says. Not at all what the film says. But here's the key. James Sapechuk in his interviews to Oprah said that he himself didn't know he was abused until 2013. He says that in his lawsuit. He didn't know he was abused until 2013. So if anyone's proving someone to be a liar, Dan Reed is making his own co-star a liar. So why is Sapechuk lying to Oprah? Why is he lying in his lawsuit? Well, Dan Reed has to do this pretzel act because they're caught. They're caught in a timeline that makes no damn sense. Here's what really happened. The 2013 year is because Sapechuk is trying to get around the statute of limitations in his lawsuit. The 2005 thing is trying to cover their ass because they have the 2009 story that they know makes no sense. And they're using the fact that James Sapechuk didn't testify at trial as a way of trying to claim that that somehow Stephanie Sapechuk was a mind reader and knew that her son was abused way back in 2005 simply because he told her that Michael Jackson was a bad man. Oh, I'm sorry. That is absurd. No, there's no way that a mother is going, especially one who was very close to the police department in Simi Valley, is going to suddenly just leave it at that. Oh, Michael was a bad man, huh? Okay, I'm not going to ask you any questions about that. And so, therefore, you either fully know or you don't know anything. You can't have it both ways. It's either or. And so they want to be able to have plausible deniability. That's what this is all about, while still allowing James Sapechuk to claim for statute of limitations purposes that he himself had no idea he was abused until 2013. That's the reality of what happened here. This is a scam. It's an obvious scam. And the idea that Dan Reed doesn't understand that this is proven by his own film and that there are other things outside the film that are more credible that contradict his narrative indicates to me that he's not very bright. I am now convinced that he is both not very bright and may have a major issue with regard to an obsession with pedophilia that is, at the very least, unhealthy, if not worse than that. So that's this week's update on the never-ending saga of leaving Neverland. That'll also do it for this edition of the World According to Zig podcast. Once again, I urge you to check out framingpaterno.com for any and all information about the Sandusky case. And as always is the case, please, I only ask two things of you. Make sure you share this via social media, Twitter, Facebook, word of mouth, what have you. And number two, if you're one of those people who sleeps, and when you sleep you use sheets, please pay attention to this important message. My name is John Ziegler. Our website is freespeechbroadcasting.com.
Coffee?
Oh, thanks.
How did you sleep?
Ugh, like a baby. I don't want to get out of bed. Ever. These sheets are incredibly soft. What did you say they're called again?
Performance bedding by Sheiks.
Performance bedding?
Yeah, they're made from super high-tech performance fabric. They're incredibly breathable, so you're not waking up at night throwing covers off and then an hour later throwing them back on.
Huh, no wonder I slept so good.
Since I started using Sheiks, I sleep like a baby. No more sweaty nights for me.
No?
Well...
Well, I like them because they're soft. They feel like, silk. Performance fabric, huh? Maybe we should... Oh, I don't know.
Try them out again?
Comfort and performance for better sleep. That's Sheiks. S-H-E-E-X. Sheiks. Try Sheiks for 30 nights risk-free. Go to sleepcoolnow.com. Use promo code 1212 and get $40 off any sheet set. That's sleepcoolnow.com, promo code 1212. Sleepcoolnow.com, 1212.